Morning, Gerard, Outside Insiders.
Welcome back from Florida.
Mate, it is great to be back in Melbourne. We thoroughly enjoyed our time in Florida. 40 degrees every day and very humid, so Melbourne's been a nice change. One of the changes that occurred while I was away was that the supermarket chains banned giving away free plastic bags to their customers.
Yes.
And when I returned after 40 years of shopping at Safeway, I started shopping at Coles because they were still giving them away. And then Coles stopped, so I go to Aldi now. What do you think about companies big noting themselves and grandstanding over plastic shopping bags?
Well, I like shopping bags because I always reuse them. So they're not one use. For me, they're always reused. And but on the other hand, if you're in these days of social media and you're a company and you've completely been hit all the time with these allegations, it's easier just to walk away from them because really it doesn't make a lot of difference. People have got to shop somewhere. So I can understand why you do it because it's not worth the argument.
I can understand that too, but I've taken my business elsewhere, and I will be recommending other people do the same for all the good it'll do. But I did do an exercise at Safeway after this blew up, where I walked around and looked at their shelves for home brand goods, and many of their home brand items are made in China and packaged in plastic. So whilst they're lecturing customers about plastic bags, they're still dealing with China, which is the world's greatest emitter of carbon dioxide. So,
well, there's hypocrisy everywhere. I saw in the new Daily, which is supported by industry superannuation funds, which are controlled by the trade union movement, a piece about a week ago criticised Malcolm Turnbull for flying to New York with Lucy on the basis of emissions. But
right.
When's the last time a trade union official stopped going to a conference in Geneva or New York because of emissions? I mean, there are all these double standards around the place. Some of the people who lecture us most about emissions are those who travel the most around the world. So you get all these kind of double standards, but that's the world in which we live, Mr. Thompson.
Absolutely. Now, in the time I was in the States, the impression I got is that the economy is booming. There are some people who say, well, Donald Trump is responsible for the economic boom, but Barack Obama was on TV in the last couple of days, said it's all up to him. The impression I have is that many Americans are quite happy with the way things are going, and yet all we get in Australia from the mainstream media is what a creep Donald Trump is. Do you have any comment about how Trump's place in America and the world?
Well, when I was on the Insiders program a few years ago, I said I thought he could win, and I indicated how. If he'd kept what Romney kept, won Florida, Ohio and Pennsylvania, he'd be there. In fact, he did 2 states better than that. So I wasn't surprised by his victory, and I think he stands a very good chance of being re-elected. I heard someone saying on Al Jazeera this morning, which the ABC was running, that a woman activist from America who was saying that he has a support of a very small minority in the United States. I mean, his support would be at least 40%. For an incumbent president, that's very high. So I think his chances of winning again are pretty good. And whilst I think it's unfair for Obama or Trump to claim, if they do claim, all the responsibility for the economic recovery, but there's no doubt that it has taken off under Trump at a much greater rate than it was occurring under Obama, where the rate of recovery was relatively slow, coming out of what the Americans call the Depression or the
Great Recession,
of 10 years ago. So he's done well, and people care about jobs, and so therefore jobs are increasing. His support among Hispanics and blacks from low margins, although higher than those of Mitt Romney or Bush, they're increasing again because people who didn't have jobs are getting jobs. So I think the outlook for Trump is pretty good, but it's always unwise to make predictions. As you know, of course, at this stage, the Democrats don't have a candidate, and it's still 2 years ago, but often there are clear people emerging 2 years out. On this occasion, they're not.
In fact, at Barack Obama's speech the other day, he made specific reference to the effect of Fox News on exacerbating racial tensions and the like. Do you ever watch Fox News?
I watch Fox News a lot. I like it.
Yeah. Now, my favourite commentator is Tucker Carlson.
Yes.
And I watch it regularly, and I have, and a number of other Fox News channel shows as well. And I never see inflammatory racial commentary.
You don't. And what you notice, I mean, there's greater diversity on Fox News in America than there is on the ABC here. They do have a diversity of people coming into the studio, but what I notice is they have a high number of a significant proportion of African Americans and Hispanics and others who come in as commentators. So there's quite a deal of variety of views and of opinions, and certainly of backgrounds. I used to like the O'Reilly show. That disappeared.
Yeah.
I watch Tucker Carlson. I watch Hannity. I watch Laura Ingraham at least once a week. I don't watch them every night, but I usually spend Saturday morning catching up with Sky News because it's the Friday night in the United States. And but the idea that it pushes racial issues is simply ridiculous. They are concerned about immigration coming across the border, but I mean they'd be just as concerned if they were white Canadians as they are if they're Latin Americans coming over the Mexican border. It's perfectly reasonable that countries want to protect their border security, but I think it's got a lot of diverse views, and there's a lot of debate on Fox.
You mentioned Bill O'Reilly. He and Megyn Kelly were my prime time go-to people for current affairs commentary. Bill O'Reilly left under a cloud of abuse allegations. Megyn Kelly went to NBC. Yeah. And I gather has not been very successful at all. But apparently the other day she was taking NBC to task for not running the Rowan Farrow story about Harvey Weinstein's alleged abuse of women. Did you have you heard that controversy?
I haven't picked up on that. I like Megyn Kelly. I thought she was great, but I think the problem is often when you work well in one environment, you don't work so well in another environment. And I thought she was good for Fox, but Fox was good for her because she provided a bit of diversity, different kind of views. They really looked after her. They gave her a lot of money, and they really looked after her, and they didn't want her to leave. Sadly, she did leave, and I don't see much of her now on a new channel. But she left of her own. On her own wishes. No one pushed her out, and she did have an argument with Trump at
yes, that's right. That's right. Yes,
that's not why she left Fox. I mean, she left Fox because she wanted to. And, the fact she had a row with Trump as a Fox person was good, and Trump didn't like it. But Trump didn't force Fox to leave her. And
that's right.
To leave, and if he did, they wouldn't have taken any notice. And, but it does provide diversity, and I think the real lesson. I mean, you've been in the United States recently, but the real lesson is that African Americans and Hispanics are doing better because they're being caught in the fact that virtually everyone's doing better.
That's right.
They will do better as well.
Absolutely. And one of the places where they're not doing so well is Chicago.
Yes.
Where
the capital of the United States.
August death toll was 53. They're already up to 8 or 9 for September. And yet Black Lives Matter never seems to do a press conference about what's going on in Chicago.
That's Obama's home territory.
Yes, indeed. And Rahm Emanuel's fiefdom for the last 8 years or so.
And I mean, that's I mean, I wouldn't want to be an African American in Chicago. I mean, it's absolutely shocking. But no one's doing anything about it.
Yeah.
When the local government's doing nothing about it. And it's not much that Trump can do. He can make noises, but he can't do much more than that.
I'd like to ask you about a controversial issue, not the one you're thinking of.
Okay.
There's a lot of talk about bullying in Australia and around the world. Now, 4 years ago or so, there was an allegation against a then politician of an alleged rape, which apparently was supposed to have occurred back in the 1980s, I believe. There was apparently a police investigation which did not result in a charge being levied against the individual concerned. In the environment of bullying being everything to everybody nowadays, would you support the idea of a Senate committee calling the person who made the allegation against the then rising political star before the Senate to give their side of the story under parliamentary privilege, so that Australians could judge the veracity of the allegations?
Well, I think it's better in all these circumstances if there is confidentiality, and there was in that case, a case to which you seem to be referring. But the problem is, in other instances, there is no such confidentiality. So, on the one hand, Victoria Police are happy to release details, and the media is happy to run them. On other occasions, Victoria Police won't release details, and the media doesn't run it. So I think what you've got there is a double standard. But I'm very conscious of the fact that some people in public life and in private life can have allegations made against them that are not true.
Absolutely.
And alternatively, people do get confused. As I said on Insiders today, I mean, people have clear recollections of events that never happened. Now, I don't know whether events did happen or don't happen, but just because someone says it happened and there's no proof for it, it doesn't mean they're lying. I mean, they may be confused, or the people making the assessment may be wrong. I don't really think it helps in these instances to keep these matters going, because I think that issue isn't going anywhere. I think it's probably best to leave it. So,
fair enough.
Well, I wouldn't take it up again. No.
Gerard, thank you very much indeed.
Here I am in Docklands, having this wonderful coffee that only took 10 minutes to boil.
That's right.
I mean, are you into saving the environment?
I've converted from an electric kettle to a gas stove kettle, and it's not working out very well time-wise.
No, just for viewers, if there are any viewers.
Yeah, that's true.
For the kettle to boil, it is a kettle, isn't it? Yeah. You can read most of War and Peace.
That's right.
From the time you put it on to the time it boils.
Absolutely, mate. Thank you very much for your time.
Okay.
Good on you, mate.